G'day everyone, back again. There's actually a few topics I probably need to speak about, but let's start with the one that's probably concerning most people around the place at the moment. Hunter virus starts in the Canary Islands. Well, it starts on a cruise ship in the Canary Islands. Now, I've seen a lot of videos. I'm certainly no virologist, I'm no expert, I don't even have the sort of background involved in even trying to talk about this, but I can only say what I've seen. I draw houses. That's what I do. I'm probably not even an expert in that, even though I've been doing it for probably the better part of 30 years. But I've seen several videos and there's been a lot of discussion online about this. It started, I suppose, the few videos that I have seen have been Nate from Canadian Prepper, who showed a video on his channel the other day about, and it was basically security video overlooking three guys in effectively, and I've seen this before, where painters go out to a building site and when they're going to be using spray paint, they put on these white coats and a bit of a mask and maybe a hat. And then there was another guy who looked like a police person, but I don't know. And he just had one of the atypical blue masks that we've seen made in China, in the back streets of China somewhere. Apparently unloading one of these passengers who was fully infected and put him in the back of an ambulance. It might have been someone who'd passed away, I don't know. Either way, like Nate said, they certainly were not dressed anywhere near to the standards that you should be in that situation. So that was the first one. And then we find out that apparently some of the passengers who caught it were allowed to go home, shove them on a plane. They kind of feel okay. So one of them flew home to France and apparently is now passed away. And the person they sat next to is in hospital in a major way. And that wasn't just the first bits of it, Apparently, the cruise ship, now I don't really know how this has worked out, but half the people have been sent to the Netherlands. Now, the Netherlands don't want them, so they've given 2 days for all the countries, because apparently there weren't enough interconnecting flights. So the Australian government has to find a plane, someone willing to fly it, go across the Netherlands, pick up Australians and bring them back. Now, I feel like we need the Benny Hill music going on in the background, because that's honestly what it sounds like. It's what it looks like. And clearly, no one cares. Because we've never been through this before, have we? Kind of all sounds familiar, but, 6 years ago, if we didn't learn anything then, some people need to be fired. Seriously fired. They need to be taken into a room and I don't care if they've been working for 30 years. You're gone. You haven't done the job you're paid to do. You've put the entire planet in danger. Now, there's people out there who seriously don't believe this is even serious. And I get it. I really do. It all sounds like someone's screwing up on purpose because that's what it looks like. Now, you want us to believe you? Try better. This is bloody ridiculous. Seriously, it's a Benny Hill show. That's what it is. Comedy company. It's hilariously serious, if it is as serious as what it really is. If it is serious, the World Health Organization needs a damn good talking to, because these people on the ground need to be fired. Number one, they should never have been let off the ship in the first place, at all. And I don't care what country it's in, and I don't care who owns the cruise ship. If you've got people with an infected virus, considering what we've just been through, keep them on the ship. And I don't care if they've got to go back to work. I don't care. If I was on that ship, there's no way in hell I'd be wanting to leave. Not until I know it's damn safe. And even if that means you've got to spend 2 months on that cruise ship, don't leave. Simple. I mean, it's unless you want to start seeing a lot of people, unless we want to go through what we've been through, I'm sorry, that plane should not be allowed to land in Australia. You should be taking it to Christmas Island or somewhere and just leaving them there for at least a month or a month and a half. And if it means their job's in danger, so be it. This isn't about 2 or 3 people. It's not about 10 people. It's about the 26 or 27 million people that live in Australia that don't want to go through this again. It's beyond a joke. And it's the same with every other country. I mean, they should be up in arms about this. And they're not, which has a lot of us seriously asking the question, are we going to go through this all over again? And how did they catch it? Where's all the research? And why all of a sudden are there vaccines for it? I mean, I don't know where to go with this anymore. I really don't. It's another one of these situations where it's like, trust the government. And we're just going, you're doing this and you're asking us that? Seriously? I don't know how to... It's a Benny Hill show. It really is. It's a comedy company. I mean, if I did that in my work, I'd be sacked. And I work for myself. I'd never have another job again. So why do they keep getting away with it? I don't know. I really, really don't know. But anyway, that's topic 1. I'd love to hear from you guys. I know where most of you stand. But I'd really love to hear what you guys think of all this. I mean, yeah. I don't know enough about all this stuff. I'm only picking stuff up on videos. I'm no expert at all. I don't pretend to be an expert. I'm not even close to one. But I'm watching this and just going, you guys are insane. And maybe I'm missing a lot of information. Maybe it's misinformation. I don't know. But I've got 2 eyes and I've got a brain. And I've seen all this happen before. And there's not a lot of people offering any sort of reasoning why certain things are happening. And yeah, it's just weird. But anyway, second topic, he says again. The Australian budget was put out last night. I don't know a lot about it. All I know is it has a lot to do with capital gains and property, which obviously I'm involved in. I must admit, I don't really do a lot of private stuff anymore. A lot of it tends to be NDIS or just personal things. We want a new bathroom, we want an extension to our house. So with regards to developers, I can't really give you any advice. I'm sure there's hundreds of videos about it, and there's probably going to be hundreds more. And it's really hard to sort of keep a track of them all. I tend to follow a couple of economists, one of which is Neil McCoy-Ward, but I doubt whether he will get too much into the Australian budget because he's from the UK. It'll be interesting to see if Michael Cowan does a video. He is Australian, and he does look at the Australian stuff. For anyone who's been subscribed to him in the past, he was quite big a number of years ago. He's had quite a big break, but he is kind of back. So I'm really keen to see whether he does a video. Otherwise, it might just be a case of watching, some of the mainstream videos, because they're never going to tell you the whole story, but at the end of the day, they're telling you what the budget's actually going to do, and what's been included in it. I have noticed that some of the economists have started to try and kind of be more honest than what they have ever been in the past. But, it's always a matter of getting 2 or 3 opinions. But, if you are a developer or you're looking to develop, I would speak to your accountant before you start going ahead with too much. And just make sure that the information is specific to your finances, to your situation, and they're in the better position to actually understand how this is going to affect each person individually. It's not up to me to tell you. It's up to you to get the advice that you need before you actually sort of start running around looking at properties or doing anything like that. Always get the best advice you can from the people that know your financial situation. Don't rely on YouTube videos to tell you what's best for you, because it's not going to work. So that's really all I can say about it. From the looks of things, it's just going to, look, the economy is basically stuffed. But at the end of the day, we've just got to basically keep doing what we're doing. Make sure you get rid of as much debt as you can. Make sure that your car payments are gone, your house payments in advance. Your credit cards, etc., are all sort of down to their absolute minimum. And there's plenty of agencies out there that can actually help with that sort of thing. So if you need advice, get proper financial advice. Don't listen to YouTube videos, as much as that's where everyone's sort of going. And this is not financial advice, but get financial advice from properly authorised, qualified people. And that's the only thing I can suggest. And look, there's a lot of people out there suggesting you buy gold, silver, etc., etc. Again, don't just rush out and do it. Get financial advice. And look, if you're not happy with the financial advice you're getting, find someone else. There's plenty out there, and I'm sure, if you do your proper due diligence and research, you'll get the advice that you need for you and your family. But it is worthwhile having a serious look at getting rid of as much debt as you possibly can. And like some people say, there is good debt, but I'm not a fan of that. But for some people, it does work. So again, get advice, get real advice, and take it from there. So I'll leave the Australian budget to the experts, because again, I'm not one of them. So I just thought I'd raise it. There's a lot of people around the world that don't really know what's happening in Australia. And yeah, the Australian budget is excuse me, is one of those things that did happen last night, and there's a lot of media online and on the TV about it. So it is quite a big subject at the moment. The second one is, and look, some of these things, and part of the reason I do watch the news every now and again, and I've watched it twice in 2 nights, and predominantly for the budget. I don't really care about anything else. I do know in Adelaide, the loss of the live golf thing is affecting Adelaide. The idea was that they were going to redevelop the North Adelaide Golf Club, which is actually in the Adelaide Parklands. And for those that don't know Adelaide, if you've ever looked at a Google image of Adelaide in South Australia, you'll notice that the city is right smack bang in the middle, and around the outside edge is a green parklands area. Now, initially the parklands was a certain width, and that width was simply because the cannons, when the city of Adelaide was designed, the cannons at the time couldn't actually shoot from the edge of the parklands into the city of Adelaide. And that's why they were designed the way they were by Colonel William Light. And the parklands were designed as a clear space, clear open space from a military standpoint. That's pretty much not good. There was no cover. Now, a lot of the trees that are actually within the parklands, and they're pretty much, they're sacred to a lot of people, and I understand it. But the Adelaide Parklands, because of the North Adelaide Golf Club redevelopment, because of supposedly live golf, about 60 of the old gum trees apparently were destined to be chopped down. And some of these things are nearly 70, 80 foot tall. There has been issues with them in the past, considering arborists have been out there to double check them, because a few of these branches have fallen off. And gum trees, Australian eucalypts, are actually renowned for that to happen. During dry periods, gum trees have a tendency of just dropping limbs. And some of these limbs are 2 to 4 foot in diameter. They're not small by any means. Some of the trees are 10 to 12 foot in diameter. They're pretty big trees. To lose anything upwards of around about 60 because of a new golf course. And look, although the Premier's come out and said, look, for every tree we're chopping down, we're going to be planting another 3, well, it's going to take another 70 years before they get to the height they were. So it's a bit of a dick thing to sort of say. I've used it. Sorry, but we've gone to cut down council trees, and we've said, oh look, we're getting rid of this tree, but we're going to be planting 2 more. So that's a good thing, right? In this case, not so much, and not for a golf course, and not for an event that's probably dead in the water. Like a lot of people have said, the live golf thing is only like a week long. So, a week out of 52 to cut down 60 major gum trees. And especially considering, like they showed on the news tonight, that half these trees actually had animal boxes that people had built and nailed to the trees for the possums and various other birds and that sort of thing to nest in. They're all gone. At least 30 odd trees have been cut down already. And so these nesting boxes are basically smashed to pieces. So who knows how many possums and other animals have been taken out. And the Adelaide City Council has actually put a stop to it, and they're going to run a federal investigation as to whether this thing even goes ahead or not. Welcome to Adelaide. It was interesting to see that in the budget, sort of going back to that, the Wireless Steelworks is getting about 403 million. Bedford Industries. So the Wireless Steelworks has been a bone of contention really. They convert iron ore into steel, and virtually Whyalla wouldn't exist without the Whyalla Steelworks. There is other industry there, fishing and a variety of other things, but realistically the Whyalla Steelworks is pretty much huge. And it's, to be honest with you, and I haven't looked into this, but I have a feeling it's one of the very few steelworks left in Australia. And considering how much industry we've gotten rid of here, it's almost a critical importance to leave it open. The problem is that it kind of has to compete with all the other steel manufacturing plants around the world. And of course, you know, when you're in China and you're paying a guy $1 an hour to work in a steelworks, and the guys here are getting $50 or $60 an hour, it becomes harder to compete. And so therefore, the amount of steel actually being produced out of the Whyalla steel markets, you know, why would you spend, you know, $3 a metre for rail line in Whyalla when you can get it for 50 cents in China, you know, delivered to Australian shores for that price? So, you know, it's part of the sort of issue we've had because of all the free trade agreements that were signed in the, I suppose, the late 80s, early 90s. And so Australian industry has basically been shipped offshore. No different to the way it has been in the United States and probably plenty of other countries. You know, I'm sure there was free trade agreements that were made that have basically meant that, you know, you're not just competing with the guy up the road anymore. You're competing with someone who's 15,000 kilometres away. But stupidly enough, even with the supply chains the way they are, it still arrives somehow in Australia cheaper than if we made it here. And you could complain about the unions and you know the price that we pay our people per hour, but it's fair. You know, you can't deny what they're being paid is too much. You know, it isn't. It's probably, in a lot of cases, not enough. But when compared to somewhere like China or other countries in Southeast Asia, you know, where they're lucky if they bring home $10 a week, you know, it's really, really hard to sort of compete with that. And stupidly enough, the vast majority of the iron ore that's mined in Western Australia, and we're a huge supplier to China, and we're a huge, our economy is pretty much based on resources. All the iron ore basically gets dug out of the ground from various mines around Western Australia, gets thrown on Chinese boats, and they ship it across to China, and they turn it into all sorts of things, which all then come back to Australia. So why aren't we making it here? Because it's just cheaper. It was a bit like during COVID, where, you know, Australia was running out of toilet paper, and I was living in Mount Gambier at the time. Now, anyone who knows Mount Gambier, and I'm sure there's a lot of people around the world who've never heard of it, but it's famous for its blue lake, which is actually, it turns blue, and it's quite a deep blue. It's astonishing to see. At certain times of the year it's grey, and it's all in the crater of a volcano. There's quite a lot of volcanoes in Australia, but most of them are what they call dormant / they're not extinct. It's just that the hotspot has relocated. So across Western Victoria, into South Australia, and actually out, I believe the hotspot is actually off the coast of South Australia now. But you can still see where all the lava flows. So Mount Gambier is quite famous for the Blue Lake, quite famous for the volcano, quite famous for for its limestone caves. There's sinkholes. Underwater diving is known worldwide, where people actually swim through submerged caves. And the amount of licensing that you don't, I mean, there's actually a cave down there just outside of Narracourt, where you basically dress up in a hard hat and it's got a light on the front and you squeeze through I don't really understand the whole idea of fun associated with going through a cave 200 metres underground and squeezing through a hole barely big enough to sort of support a human, but that's what people do. So, and they pay good money to do it. So, I mean, there's better ways to live a life, but, okay, fair enough. Whatever suits your fancy, I suppose. But the one thing Mount Gambier is famous for is its plantations. And when I say plantations, I'm talking pine trees, eucalyptus. They're commercially farmed. Used to all be owned by the state government until it was all sold to a Canadian super fund to fund the redevelopment of the Adelaide Oval. I didn't know that until I got down there. Certainly hadn't heard that one on the news. But the timber is turned into all sorts of things. It's turned into the pine that we use to build houses. It's turned into sawdust. It's turned into floor sheeting. And funnily enough, they make pulp. Now, pulp is basically, I suppose, fine sawdust that's been mixed with water. And then eventually it gets turned into toilet paper. Funnily enough, we don't have the plants in Mount Gambier or anywhere in this state to actually turn pulp into paper. Right? We got rid of them all. Again, free trade. Yeah, I know, right? Starting to see the point. So what was happening during COVID was all the pulp was being taken down to Victoria, where there's a big port, loaded onto a Chinese boat, yes, that country again, taken all the way to China, they turn it into paper, and then they turn around and come back and deliver it here, where we turn it into toilet paper. It's great, isn't it? And yes, there is a place down there that turns pulp or whatever it is into toilet paper. And they were doing it, they were running 24/7 shifts. They had so much toilet paper down there, it wasn't funny. But what got us was the fact that there was no processing plant that sort of sat in the middle of these two things. And there probably still isn't, because I haven't seen anything about it. So yeah, it's just hilarious. And it sort of comes back to the whole, I mean, you could go down the factory and get as much toilet paper as you wanted, even though, I mean, the stupid thing was that, this place that was producing toilet paper apparently had several factories within their location that were full of toilet paper. The problem was that because of the deals that a lot of these major shopping centres make, Coles and Woolworths, they weren't part of it. So while they were running out, this factory was getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and you could actually go to the door and buy it, except you couldn't because we were in lockdown. We're sitting there and just looking at each other going, this is where we've got to. And again, it comes back to this whole, don't worry, we're the government, we'll look after you. You're just sitting there going, this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong. And you just run out of fingers and toes, and you run out of calculator space to just add up the screw-ups that somehow have managed to get into our lives that we've never taken into any interest in the past. And all of a sudden we sit there and look at it all and just go, wouldn't it make more... And you just get tired of looking at it, because it's like anyone with half a brain. And I've never said that politicians don't have a brain, but I don't think they do. I really don't. And The stupid part about all this is that we elect our politicians every 4 years, right? So they're here and then they're gone, and they're in power and then they're not. And it's the whole Pauline Hanson movement at the moment, One Nation. We've just seen an election in Queensland, I think, where she absolutely smashed Labor and Liberal. And in Australia, Labor and Liberal are the two biggest parties. They didn't even get a look in. And it was the same in the South Australian Parliament. Just recently, we had our election. And again, they got so much of the vote. Okay, I can't remember which party got in, whether it was Labor or Liberal. I don't care really. But yeah, they actually won about 3 or 4 seats, which was like everyone sitting there going, "Oh my God!" And it's the same in England, where they've just had council elections, and Nigel Farage's Reform Party has virtually wiped the other parties off the table. People are fed up. Like, seriously, they're fed up. And I kind of look at America, because you guys have got the Republicans and the Democrats, but no other party even gets a look in. Like, it's supposedly a free and fair election. Well, I'm sorry, no, it's not, because there's no other choice. That's not free and fair. Free and fair is when you've got 30 parties vying for the top role. Now, obviously, it all comes down to finances, and I get that. But there should be more competition. Like, we call Woolworths and Coles here in Australia a duopoly. We call Qantas and who's the other one? There's 2 airlines basically that run Australian Airlines, and so they make it seem like they're competing, but you just know that in some boardroom they're sitting together in the same room going, "Now, how do we screw people this week?" So. And it's the same with the political parties. Like, people are just so fed up with this whole idea of Labor and Liberal. And it's the same in America. They're fed up with Republican and Democrat. And it's the same in the UK. And it's the same in every Western democracy. They're fed up because it's not 2 parties. It's one party under the same or under a different banner. And the worst part is that, most Australians couldn't care less about elections. We just really don't. I couldn't even tell you. All I know is Anthony Albanese is the current Prime Minister. I couldn't even tell you who the opposition leader is. I don't know. I know in South Australia, Malinowskis is currently the Premier, but I know there's a blonde bird who's the member of the office, but I couldn't tell you her name. I really couldn't. It's because Australians don't care. We're being screwed. Doesn't matter who it is. Whereas, you look at the Republican and Democrats. They're, okay, Trump's the leader. Who's the leader of the other party? Do we know? Or hasn't that been decided yet? I don't know. It's like, this is where we're at. We've got these people supposedly telling us what we can and cannot do and how much we've got to pay in tax. And by the way, that petrol that you buy, yeah, that's going up 10 cents a litre. It's like, hang on a sec. We put you there. Shouldn't you be kind of doing what we're, the vast majority of us actually want you to do? Isn't that the idea? Yeah. So, you look at all the elections happening around the world and they're like, we don't want you guys anymore. You guys have been in power for like the last 50 years and you've done jack. This is where we're at now. So why would we want you back? And then somebody else comes up and goes, we can do something about this. Okay, we'll give you a go. But the stupid part is that most of these people that you know, whether it's Nigel Farage or whether it's Pauline Hanson, I'm sorry, they've been part of the system for the last 20 years, 25 years. They're in it. Have they done anything up to this point to make your life better? No, they haven't. No. How do you reckon most of these bills get passed through Parliament? They vote for it. And every now and again they'll come out and go, oh, but we had to vote that so that we could get our thing in, and it's all a buddy system. It's like, we'll give you a go. If you pass this bill, we'll pass yours. And then they might or might not. As long as it evens out, as long as they get their fair share, it's so rigged, it really isn't funny. So, yeah. But I could honestly go on and on and on, and I'm just kind of over it all. I really am. I've been following this stuff for 6 years now, and to be honest with you, like I said to Chance today in his live, I don't know whether I'm just kind of burnt out or whether I don't care anymore or whether... I don't know. I think like a lot of us, it's just getting a lot harder and harder to basically wake up in the morning because you just don't want to be there. And I've got plenty of other places I'd rather be. I'm not saying that I'm going to do something stupid, but I'm not. But I'd much rather be out bush. I'd much rather be doing a million other things than waking up and knowing that for every 5 days I work, 4 of them are basically paying the Australian government. It just gets a little bit stupid sometimes. So yeah, I don't know where I sit. I could go on and on and on, seriously. It's probably a good thing I don't have 50 subs yet. And I would like to thank everyone who's subscribed recently, by the way. It does mean a lot. I'd love to know who half of you are because YouTube won't tell me. And I've looked everywhere in the settings to figure out who's actually subscribed, and I can't find them. There's like 7 people apparently, and I've got 33 subscribers. So awesome. Oh, and another one. Today I found out about Gem, Optical Gem. For those in Marfugal News, she's a mod. Man, does she put out some good music. Oh my gosh. You got to keep making music, young lady. It's very, very good. So yeah, if you do see this video and you want to pop over to her channel, have a listen. She's pretty good. So yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to you. Chance, mate. Yeah. And Laura Griffiths, I've seen your name pop up a couple of times in comments, so good to see you. And there's a few others. I know. There's so many videos that half of us are subscribed to, and we never get to see them all, and that's fine. I understand it, and half the time it's just me rabbiting on, probably talking crap half the time. But just some guy. Keep doing videos, mate. Stick at it. Yeah, Robin, love you to bits. You know it. Yeah. And all the others. Seraphim, you're a cool chick. Love the blue hair. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah. If you like it, like it. If you've got something to say it. Comments, just say something. I tend to reply to everyone. So, yeah, I'm pretty easy to get along with. I don't really get offended too much. So, yeah, thank you to everyone, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.